What's up, Fit Fam? So happy to have you back at my channel. Today we're going to do lower body mobility, and we're going to kind of do an ACL style, I guess, because I've had not only one but two ACL reconstructions. I have had the cadaver graft. I actually opted to do the cadaver versus the hamstring because my surgeon kind of gave me the pros and cons, and for what I was doing, the cadaver seemed like the most efficient way for me to get back and doing things. Hindsight, I may have chose differently, but obviously I didn't know how I was going to recover the first time, so I chose what I thought was best for me at the time. I was training strongman. Well, I had just started training strongman. I was coming off of a 2-year bodybuilding season, and so I needed to get size put on me, so I decided to do strongman, and that's when I tore my knee the first time. When I tore my knee the second time, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me because it gave me a lot of my mobility back that I actually lost the first time. And so I now have a lot of creaking and cracking. Cute video. All right, guys, you gotta listen to my knee. So I have a lot of that after effect. Things that irritate it are standing long periods of time, lots of walking, the type of floor that I'm on, kind of anything. It has a mind of its own. After my first ACL surgery, I had a lot of hip issues, and that can only be contributed to the fact that I compensated for 7 months before I even had surgery. I was still training, I was still doing everything because the tear, it was like 90% torn, I believe, but I was still able to do things. It was just I was limited on my flexibility, and so that's why I opted to even do the surgery to begin with. Hindsight, I probably wouldn't have done it at all, but here we are. I have a lot of residual hip issues now still because of surgery number one, or prior to surgery number one. My hip has caused me a lot of issues it's going on almost 2 years now, or a year and a half now, 2 years. Ultimately, it's causing radiating pain up through my spine into like my neck and my shoulder and stuff, and so I'm having to go to the chiropractor kind of a lot. Doing these stretches have actually helped me be able to kind of minimize all of that stuff and kind of keep going. The stretches that I'm going to show you today are things that I do either at home or before a lift, or maybe on like a rest day. It actually helps me kind of, my whole body just kind of calm down and be able to do what I need to do. Let's go ahead and hop into the video, guys. All right, guys, we're gonna do this in real time because I want to take a second to actually talk to you and explain why I'm doing things the way I'm doing them. So I'm just bringing my knee up to my chest, keeping it nice and tight. I'm pulling it back as far as I can physically go while trying to keep my balance. I'm doing this for roughly a count of 5. The next exercise, I'm just bringing my heel all the way up to my butt. Again, trying to keep my balance and my back nice and straight. If I was leaning forward or if I was leaning backwards, that means my mobility is lacking quite a bit, so I need to make sure and really stretch out those knees. Next, I'm going to be doing some air squats. Nice and slow and controlled. I'm not really doing these for any strength or physical purposes other than mobility in my hips and my knees. Bringing it all the way up to the ceiling, keeping my back nice and straight. I'm really sinking into my hips before I take it down to the floor and walk it out. I'm also doing this for a set of 5. So taking it all the way up to the ceiling, sinking down into my hips, and once I feel that feeling of complete relaxation through my hips and my pelvis, that's when I walk it out. All right, I'm taking my feet out pretty wide, pointing my toes outward away from my body, and then sinking really far down into my hips. I want to feel this stretch. I'm almost pausing at the bottom for about 1 or 2 counts before taking it back up. This is merely so that I can sit down into my hips. These last few stretches are probably something that you've seen a million times before. These are no different. I know it seems redundant and probably pretty silly, but trust me when I say this stuff really works. The stretching is super important. I can always tell my mobility is lacking when I can't stretch as far as what I used to or what I should be able to. Part of my problem with my ACL is that I can't put any pressure on my kneecap. So you'll notice that I'm pointing my toes backwards and I'm putting a lot of my weight kind of on that shin area and really using my body to push down. That way I'm getting a really good stretch through my knee, up through my quad, as well as my hamstring. We don't want it to cause any pain, but it shouldn't be easy. You should really feel the stretch. One of the things I love to do when I'm by myself is use my body weight as the resistance. If there isn't somebody there to help me stretch, I have to be able to use what I have, so my body weight works perfect. These next exercises are going to be all about the knee mobility as well as the hips and the lower back. So I'm bringing it up, just pulling those knees to my chest as tight as I can, doing a single leg, and then both together. Then I'm taking it straight out and then slowly lowering it down. So I'm really using my core to lower it down to the floor before restarting. I'm holding each one of these probably for a 3 to 5 count. You can do it longer if you need to. I'm going to bring one knee up and I'm actually pushing against it with my hands as I'm pulling up with my knee. So this is going to help my hips kind of get in line, so to speak. Once I do those, then I'm going to reverse it. So I'm pulling against it with my hands and pushing with my leg. Now, if you're familiar with an ACL injury and or maybe a hamstring injury, these probably look pretty familiar. They're called clamshells. And what this is going to do is really work those hamstrings as well as your hip flexibility. These are supposed to be nice and controlled, so you don't just whip through them super fast. Really squeeze through that glute, bringing that knee up as high as you can and then back down. Make sure to do both sides equally. Some of this stuff might look pretty familiar as yoga poses, which they are. Again, it's all about that stretch, and these are some of the exercises that I found that have worked best for me in my situation because I am unable to do a lot of the exercises that usually stretch the knees or the hips, things like that, because I can't put any pressure on my kneecap. Now this exercise is definitely one of my favorites. So I'm pushing up with my arms, pulling that knee all the way up as high as I can, and also pushing my other hip down towards the floor. So my pelvis and my hip should be on the floor, and then my opposing knee is going to be pulled up as high as I can, really feeling that stretch. I'm going to do 5 reps on either side. Now this exercise might look a little silly, but it feels amazing. I do have a slight pulling in my lower back, which is normal. It's uncomfortable, but it's not painful. So that's kind of how you can differentiate between the two. So give this a try. If it's painful, obviously don't do it. This is called a scorpion pose. So my chest is flat to the floor, my arms are up beside me, and then I'm pulling that leg to the opposing side with a slight bend in my knee, trying to tap the floor with my toe. If you can't get your foot all the way back to the floor, just go as far as you can. Again, you don't want it to be painful. I'm doing this for 5 reps on either side. Now I'm taking it up from the floor, keeping my arms nice and straight and trying to pull that hip and that foot to the opposing side while tapping the floor. Again, this isn't painful for me, but it is slightly uncomfortable because it is pulling and it's stretching. And trust me when I say that I am actually out of breath. I know that sounds stupid, but this is ridiculous. All right, y'all, that was the end of all of my mobility stretching for my at-home, my rest days, kind of a quick pick-me-up. I hope some of these exercises help you if you are also struggling from maybe some hip pain, ACL issues. If you'd like to know more about my ACL and my recovery, please feel free to comment below, or I can even make a video about it. So if you're interested, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and comment below what you'd like to hear more about. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well as that little notification bell. That way you are the first to know of an upcoming video. We will catch you guys